Good day. My name's Dave Glover. Today I'd like to walk you through the RSA Netwitness platform, showing you not only how Netwitness can help in the security use cases, but also for compliance and operations as well. When we look at traditional SIEMs, they really break down into a few different buckets. The first one being capture, being able to bring in logs from various disparate systems, whether I have mainframes, ACF2 RACF, to databases, Oracle, SQL, web proxies, Blue Coat, WebSense, host logs, Windows, Unix. The RSA Netwitness platform can bring all of this information in. What do we do with it once it's captured? We can build reports for compliance needs. We can build reports for operational needs, top 10 bandwidth users, who's touching sensitive files, who's logging in, who's failing to log in. There's also dashboarding, taking that information and building real-time dashboards. So at a very quick glance, I can see exactly what's going on. We'll follow that up with alerting, being notified proactively that somebody's creating accounts on your domain controller, proactively being notified that somebody's deleting files on your file server. Any of the information that comes into NetWitness can be reported on, can be alerted on. With the capabilities of our parsing engine, you could also bring in your own logs and build a parser for those. Let's start by logging in. When we first log in as a new user, we're presented with the default dashboard. The default dashboard has a few different widgets in it. What's new? Shortcuts, available services, and then more information about live and live resources. We'll cover live later. When I first log in, maybe I'd like to see more about the information that I care about. If I'm a host admin, maybe I'd like to see dashboards for failed logins. Maybe I'd like to see dashboards for user account creations, access to files. If I'm a network admin, maybe I'd like to see things like NetFlow data, top hosts, top bandwidth users, what's going through the firewalls. This is all very capable within the NetWitness platform. I can build and customize as many dashboards as I'd like. I can put as many charts and graphs on each of the dashboards. I could then share out the dashboards to other users within the NetWitness platform. We're going to be building dashboards. We're going to be building reports, adding in devices, walk through what's involved in doing all of those functions. Think about what dashboards you'd like, what type of data elements in them. When creating dashboards, everything starts as a rule. The rules are then used in reports. The rules are used in dashboard creation as well. There are a few dashboards out of the box. Things like identity, operations logs and network, threat indicators, threat intrusion. I've also gone ahead and created some of my own. Web statistics, daily operations. If we jump in here and take a look, let's see what one of these looks like. We'll take a look at the daily operations one. So I'll go ahead and select this, or a dashboard that I have created that's relevant to me in my daily job. If we take a look at what some of these are, we have top files, top services, top web categories, top destination countries, ports, users, event categories, bandwidth users, threats. We have things like account changes, accounts deleted, created. We then also have what some of my ESA or correlation rule triggers have been. I can see that I have access to sensitive files. I can see that I have Windows management alerts. And then what my top event sources are within my environment. What's involved in building these? Well, let's go take a look. It all starts in the reports. In the reporting engine, there are rules. Those rules are broken up into groups. There's groups such as situational awareness, firewall events, IDS signatures, executables by country. There's about 61 of these in this list or in this group. You can create as many groups as you'd like. In my case, I've created a date group, and I have 46 rules that I built looking for different things. Things like top destination IPs, destination ports, active sync countries, audit log cleared, bandwidth users. Let's start creating these to take a look at what we can do. When creating rules, we first need to familiarize ourselves with the data and where it lives. I like to start in the investigation module. So let's go there now. Now we see that I'm using a metagroup called basic logs. This is one that I have created that includes the following meta keys. I'm not going to read these all off, but there's quite a few meta keys in here that are relevant for, again, my daily job and what I like to look for. I can also create metagroups relevant for other things. I have one that looks for byte counts. In that case, I have device IP, device type, bytes, megabytes, source and destination IPs. Maybe I'd like to look for web traffic, in which case I have a destination or a metagroup set up for just these types of events. The reason I set up metagroups is to limit what I see in the display. In this case, I have about 8 or 9 keys. Those keys are message IDs and categories and so forth, so on. There's no need to use the default metagroup. If I use a default metagroup, which has a couple hundred keys in here, it means I now need to scroll and continue to scroll to look for what I'm concerned about. There's no need for this. Create your own metagroups. If I wanted to create a metagroup that just had a couple of pieces of information, I could click on this little plus, name my metagroup, so we can just call this a test metagroup. What keys would I like to have in here? Well, maybe I would like my device type and device IP. So we'll click add. Now you see those come over here. Maybe I just like usernames. So I type in user. I can now select my destination user account. And maybe I just like a source IP address. So let me click in IP and we'll select source IP address. Now you'll notice that there's 2 that are open, 2 that are auto. I prefer to have everything open. I know there are other users that prefer to have everything closed. So if we take a look at the options, open, close, auto. Hidden, if it's hidden, it might as well not be in this group at all because it's not going to display at all within the investigator console. So I like to select everything as open. If I select this little gear up here, it'll change everything below. Now when I click save and apply, you want to apply this metagroup. But you see now that I only have the 4 keys that I'm looking for. Maybe I'm just looking for usernames. Maybe I'm looking for usernames from this server, for example, or something else. But it limits the display of what I have. Let's go back to my basic logs metagroup, and we can see all of the different meta keys I have. I add to these over time. So typically they start with just a small number of keys. Then I start adding more and more to them. While looking through this list, I can see that some of these are highlighted. The reason for that is, with the addition of the Context Hub in version 10.6, we now can see if this information is related to anything else. For example, if I highlight over here, I see that there's an alert related to that address. I could very simply right-click this, context lookup, and it will then show me the alerts that are related to that IP address. Some of the other data available in the Context Hub, if we hover over some of these other IPs, we see that there's data contained from ECAT. There's also information from incidents as well, and then if you have any lists, those would be defined, and then Live Connect. Live Connect is the community sharing where we'll check that IP address to see if the community sees anything. Now let's focus on the usernames. So if we scroll down, we can see our source user accounts. Scroll up a little bit. Now let's focus on user accounts. Let's say that the report that we want to build has top 10 users in it. We can see that we have information contained in destination user account. If we see we have values like root, and a bunch of other ones. Now there are machine accounts in here as well, as that's just the way that Microsoft Windows logs events. So we know that the data that we want to run, we know that our top 10 user list is going to be driven from the destination user account. So what we want to do now is let's click here on the tree, go to reports. In order to keep this window up, I'm going to right click, open a new tab. So let's go ahead and do that. Click on my reports. I've created a new folder called POC. So I'm going to build my reports in there. To build my top 10 user report, click on the plus, and we'll select NetWitness DB. Now the IPDB is there in case you have a legacy Envision system. This allows the NetWitness system to access the data contained within the Envision IPDB. Warehouse DB, if you have a warehouse or a Hadoop system with Hive Server 2, we can connect to that as well. And then lastly, the IMDB is to connect and build reports out of the incident management system. But for our purposes, we'll just select NetWitness DB. We'll go ahead and give it a name. So this will be our top 10 user list. Now the summarizations you have here, we have a few different options. We have none, in which case there'll be no summarization, and you could stick in time and get a very, very detailed list of events as they happened. There's event count, which I would summarize on one value if I have one thing in the select statement. It's packet count, session size, and custom. For our purposes, the majority of what we're going to be doing is custom. Now is when I select the columns that I would like to report off of. If you're curious what other columns are available for you, if we go back to our investigative screen, and now we pick, let's just pick malware user. We can do right click, open a new tab. This will then pull back those 10 or so events and show me all the detail behind them. So these are all the raw logs, which is great. I want to flip this log into detail view, show additional meta. This shows me everything that we parsed out of that one log message. There are some that are blue and some that are gray. The difference between those two is the blue is indexed. I can put it into my where clause. The gray values are not indexed. I could not do something like where service name equals doorsnet-pc. I could, however, put service name in a select statement, and that would be just fine. But this basically just shows you all the different meta that we parsed out of that one log message. Let's go back to our report. What would we like to see? We would like to see device type, for example. We would clearly like to see the username, so that's destination user account, and then possibly account, so that we have some summarization. And here's where I can put some aliases in. So I might put in device type, username, and account. Now here's where I put in my where clause. There's a couple of different things we could do. What do we want to filter on? Maybe we want to filter on where device type equals Windows, or more commonly, where user destination exists. And you can see that it kind of fills in the operators down below. How do we want to summarize? Well, let's summarize on the count, and let's go descending to make things easy. Now what we can do from here is click test rule. Here's where I would pick whether I want to pull from a concentrator, from a broker, or whatever data source I have. Archiver even as well. Click on report for tabular. Past hours should be just fine. Click run test. The test has returned the results. We can start to tweak exactly what we see in the report. For example, I don't want these values that begin with VG, well, nor do I want the ones that begin with health. I also don't want machine accounts. Those are the ones that end in $. Let's go ahead and take those out. Go back to my where clause, where user destination exists, throw my ampersand signs, and we don't want the ones that end in $. However, when I look at this, equals, not equals, begins, contain, ends, exists, not exists, length, and regex. I could easily pick regex to do my filters. However, regex is not one of my strong points. There must be an easier way. Well, there is. What we want to do is we want to negate any of these commands. So what I can do is I will wrap this in parentheses, and this is a requirement. Now what I do is I do another parentheses. I do a not in front of my operator. User dest ends $. My two quotes, or my two parentheses, and that should remove out any of the $signs. So let's run the test and see what we come up with. The test has returned, and all of our $signs are gone. Again, we want to remove out the VGs and the health as well. These all start VGE and health. Similarly, we're going to go through exactly the same procedure and remove those. So again, open paren, not user.dst begins VG, open, close that. We'll do another one to remove the health. Not let's do our test here. Test has returned, and now this list is getting much, much better. We see exactly what we're looking for. We could continue on to remove a few of the other pieces out, but this is exactly what we're looking for. Scroll over here. We can get our counts, how many there were. Let's do another simple report, so we'll go ahead and save this. I think what we're going to do is we're going to copy out our where clause. And let's create another quick top 10 list. Quick little summary report. Same thing here. We're going to do custom. We're going to do user dst and then count of user dst. Paste our where clause back in. Pick our summary. Test our rule to make sure that it works. We see that we return data with accounts. Now what we'd like to do is we'd like to be able to add this into our dashboard. Let's go ahead and save this rule. Click Use. I'm going to put that into a chart. Here's where we name the chart. So top. Pick our X and Y axis. It makes it very, very simple as there's only one in there. You could, if you'd like, to test the chart just to make sure that it's going to work the way you think it will. However, we already did that with the rule, so now we click Save. Now that chart has been saved. We can actually go over here to Manage, Charts, and we'd be able to see our top 10 users here, which is scheduled. To add this to a dashboard, what we want to do is we want to click on Dashboard, and the default dashboard comes up. Let's go ahead and add a new dashboard. A regular 3 columns would be just fine. Again, I'll call this dashboard title POC just to keep in line with the groups of other rules. Create. Now we have an empty dashboard. From here, I will click this little plus and add a dashlet. Dashboards are the background or the frame that holds all the dashlets. The charts are actually the dashlets. We'll add a dashlet. Click here. Drop down to Reports Real-Time Chart. Here I can go ahead and select my chart. Top 10 users. Select. What type of chart would I like? Column or pie chart? In my case, I'll do a pie chart. I want a chart with totals. This is a snapshot of the last 24 hours. The other options you have here are charts over time, or chart values over time. That is a histogram from left to right that shows as things have progressed over the course of the 24 hours. Great for services over time or authentications over time, so you can get a pretty good trending line. We'll click Add, and we see now that that dashboard has been created and the dashlet has been added to there. You can do some further filtering to really hone it down, potentially some device types and stuff like that. Let's do another one real quick, just so we're completely set on the process. what I'd like to do is I'd like to run a report for my top 10 device types. So top 10 device types. In this case, because it's a single value, we can use an event count. So device.type. The alias is optional, but I like to put it in just to put friendly names. Where device.type exists. Doing ascending, descending, it really doesn't matter. I have less than 10 devices, but we'll put into descending just so we have our top 10. Quick test of rule. Rule has come out. If you want to exclude any of these, maybe we want to exclude the unknowns or exclude, for example, Cario. I can again do it very, very simple here. And device.type not equals. So the equals and not equals, we do have the reverse operation. We don't need to use the not command. So not equal Cario. Run my test rule again, and you'll see that Cario is gone. And we can see that there's no Cario in the list. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing. Save, use, chart, select, top 10 devices. Go ahead and save that. Go back to my dashboard. Add Dashlet. Reports real-time chart. Select my chart. Top 10 devices. We see that schedule that hasn't run yet. That'll run at the top of the minute. Chart type. Maybe we want to do a column or another pie chart. Click Add. And this is very common when that report has not run yet. It'll just sit here loading until the report runs at the top of the next couple of minutes. And that's what's involved in building a dashboard. Again, the steps to create dashboards. I create a new dashboard, which again is just the template behind. I then go into reports, build the rules that I would like that look for the data that I want to represent, make sure my rule works. We'll save that rule, then use it as a chart. Once the chart is there, I can then load it into the Dashlet, and then I'll have my dashboards, my Dashlets I'm looking for. And eventually, as you walk through these and make more, you'll have something similar to this that shows you exactly what you're looking for. Now that we've built some dashboards, let's go ahead and use those rules in a different way. While we're here in the reports, let's close out of our little rules. Let's go create a new report. There's a couple of different ways that I can do it. I can do it when I'm within the rule. Remember, we used the use button and we created the chart. Well, I can also create a report. That's one way. So let's go ahead and do that. Select where I want the reports. I should have, I can just put them under the all for the time being. Now I can go create a report group as well. Select, here's my top 10 user summary. I can go ahead and save this report. If I'd like to schedule it on some periodic basis, or if I want to run it now, I can do that from here as well. I basically just give it a schedule name, so top 10 devices. What time period do I want to run it on? I want to run it now, later, hourly, so forth, so on. What's the time period that I want the report to cover? Do I run it on the past 2 hours, for example? If I check this relative time calculation, if it were 1 o'clock for me right now, or actually say 12:59, if I ran this for the past 2 hours without that checked, that report would run for the last 2 complete hours. So that would be the 10 to 11, the 11 to 12. If I click it here, and again, it's 12:59, this report will run from 10:59 to 12:59. That is the relevance of that. Also, when I'm here, I can choose to email out this report to specific recipients. I could add logos into the reports as well, so that you can take out the RSA default logo and put in your own company logo as well. I could then hit schedule, and then that would schedule the report to run and so forth. The other way to build reports, let's go into the reports. Let's add a new group. Again, I'm going to make this simple and call it POC. I can click a new report. I could call this Daily Operations Report. Now what I can do is I can go here to Rules. This is where keeping all your rules together is really important. Click on POC, and I can very easily drag these rules over into the report. If I'd like to put a header in here, I could add a header, and I could put something else in here. I could put operations reports. If I have a lot of reports, maybe I'd like to add a table of contents, so I can do that as well. Now once I built my report the way that I want, and you can drag headers in between reports. You could put in a comment section if you want. Lots of options within the report. Again, same deal. I can save it. I can go ahead and schedule it and push it off however I'd like it to run. So again, let's just follow this through and give this test 2. Which database do I want to push this against? Concentrate. If you have brokers, you can push against brokers as well. Now on the past 2 hours, and then go ahead and schedule that. Where you see this represented, you're in the Manage, Reports. If you click on View All Schedules and do a sort on last run, you will see the 2 reports, well in our case the 2 that we saw. I can click View from here, or I can click the View tab up here, click on the 22nd of June, and we can see the daily reports in the test 2 that I just ran. If I click on the test 2, we see the table of contents. Here's our report for the top 10 devices, top 10 users, top 10 user summary. Those are the reports and scheduling them and building them. So to recap, we built dashboards. We built rules. We then used those rules as charts, and we built them and used them as a scheduled report, as a multi-report. To close out the reporting section, there are quite a few reports out of the box. You have compliance needs. Well, there's reports to cover all of the compliance regulations. Now you may say to yourself, well, PCI has more than one report. There's many, many different reports that PCI Section 10 is calling for. Yes, that's very true. So if we actually click on PCI, open this report up, you're going to see many different rules that are within here. Accounts modified, password changes, group management, traffic type data, activity of users. This is all within a single report. So when this gets scheduled and run, I get a single PDF, assuming it's being emailed, a single PDF with all of the rules in there. That's much more preferable than getting 15 or 20 individual reports, each with a single value in them. Now we've walked through how to create dashboards, how to create rules, reports, and look through Investigator. Coming up in part 2, we'll be creating additional rules, although this time we'll do real-time alerting rules. We'll cover a few more reporting examples. We'll also take a look at adding devices or event sources into the system. See you in part 2.